Bridges crisscrossed most routes. Sometimes the trams went over them, sometimes underneath. Some offered very limited clearances overhead. Jamaica Bridge was the first and the last to be crossed, over a period of 90 years, and these scenes were taken in 1908 and now the 1950s. Until the Kingston Bridge was built, the George VI Bridge was furthest west and offered views of the Burns and Laird Irish boats, which left daily from the Broomielaw, overlooked by the Clyde Navigation Trust buildings. Strangely, the design of the bridge was unsuitable for horse-drawn traffic, just a bit too steep. There were no such problems further east, and the trams also crossed bridges at Dalmarnock, right beside the power station, and at Rutherglen. But don't forget that the trams had to deal with other water obstructions as well as the Clyde. They went under the Forth and Clyde Canal at Maryhill with a squeeze. And at Billsland Drive, where some tight curves at the foot of a hill caused several trams to come to grief. The Forth and Clyde Canal presented another obstacle at Dalmuir, but in this case it was on the level with the tracks to Dalmuir West. The most often recalled bridge in the city, at least by exiles, is that beneath the central station, where it passes over Argyle Street. This creates a tunnel for east and westbound traffic. This caused no problems in the days of the trams, but now there are major concerns about pollution. As they allegedly have this section of Argyle Street to themselves, we can only blame the users, buses. How many makes of car can you spot here? Compare this view of St George's Cross in 1957 with the Jubilee procession 35 years before. Even in the 50s, this was a major five-way intersection. There were trams every few minutes. Sad to say, with the construction of the M8 and approach roads in this area, St George's Cross today is no longer what it was. Nearer town was the junction of St George's Road and Woodlands Road, where trams for the University and West End left those heading for Springburn. The M8 runs beneath the southern approaches and has swept away most of the buildings on that side, but the Woodlands area was the first in the city to indulge in tenement cleaning and refurbishment. Some are now even floodlit. When the M8 was tunnelled beneath Charing Cross, the original configuration of buildings was ruined forever and the Grand Hotel was demolished. Fortunately, Charing Cross Mansion survived. Also to be seen are a variety of Alexander's buses. These provided a plethora of suburban services from the city in northern and eastern directions. Finniston Cross used to form the junction for the short tram service which ran down to the Stobcross ferry. This was the first to be withdrawn in 1926. In 1959 there are trams heading west to Kelvin Grove and east into town. Sarson Cross was where the trams from the Round Toll selected their route, either to Springburn, past the Blind Asylum, or Keppoch Hill Road. Glasgow Cross was where the trams met the first trolleybuses, to be placed in service in 1949. This was and still is another busy five-way junction where Gallowgate and London Road traffic converge, entering Trongate and the central business district. Eastwards along Gallowgate, Parkhead Cross formed another five-way junction, which was complicated by very tight curves in the track from Duke Street and Springfield Road. The services using these curves ran to the most prestigious West End locations, yet had to be content with the old standard trams, which were the only ones capable of negotiating the sharp bends. The frequency of services and complicated manoeuvres made by the trams were such as to merit the provision of a pointsman's tower, seen on the left. The other location provided with a pointsman's tower was Bridgeton Cross, also in the East End. This was a major intersection where trams departed their various ways outbound to Auchenshuggle, Burnside and Bellahouston. On the south side of the city was Paisley Road Toll. When these scenes were filmed in 1958, the trolleybus wires were already strung for the tram replacement, destined to be the last. All later tram routes were substituted with buses. There were basically two types of trams in Glasgow, the new ones and the old ones. In fact, the old ones really were old, with some dating from the turn of the century. Officially, these were called standard trams. Although superficially similar, hardly any two were actually the same. Something of the vintage and atmosphere of the standard tram can be gleaned from these interior scenes. Viewed today, they seem positively Victorian, which is true, but Glaswegians never gave this a second thought. They were so used to them. running the tramways was labour intensive. Mundane tasks such as points cleaning could not be avoided. If the points couldn't be changed due to obstructions, the tram service could not be operated. A favourite vantage point for the enthusiast was the seat over the driving cabin. Woe betide anyone who dared open the front window upstairs. This was the sole preserve of the conductress for the purpose of changing the destination screens, hat securely fixed by a hat pin. Most points at busy junctions were changed automatically from the approaching tram, but there were few, even on main thoroughfares, where manual changing was necessary, and on today's much busier roads, this would be a hazardous pursuit. There were other types of trams, including this one and only single-decker, built in 1926 to beat off the competition from the bus companies in the days before regulation of services. It was not successful, being nicknamed Wee Baldy due to its lack of top deck. A fleet of 50 double-bogie versions of the standard trams, similar in concept to those in use in London, was placed in service in the late 1920s for the Paisley to Airdrie and Uddingston services, again to beat off bus competition. These were not guaranteed to make the turn from Jamaica Street into Argyle Street without derailing, and had to be redeployed on the straight east-west services along Argyle Street and Dumbarton Road. Their destination screens were really complicated to change, requiring a technique all of their own. They were the first trams placed in service with upholstered seating, but had the downstairs seats rearranged longitudinally during World War II to allow increased standing loads. They were somewhat ponderous, but gave a very resilient ride along track which was latterly in poor condition. Lady drivers could handle their 16 tons of tram with consummate ease. To try and gain better use of these vehicles, one was rebuilt in 1940 to take on this hybrid appearance, which made some call it the Horonation. Number 1100 has been preserved at the National Tramway Museum. The first of the new trams went into service in 1937, becoming known as the Coronation class. The pre-war examples are the Mark I variant and provided the last word in luxury short stage travel. The Coronations were expensive to build. £3,500 was a lot of money for a vehicle in 1937. Economies were sought in the production of several smaller versions with a reduced specification. These were known